government leaders not following their own laws.
Hey, Greg, I need to ask you a question. Do you think we live in a world of paranoia too?
Well, it's not so much paranoia. We have a lot of complacency. We have people who feel their vote don't count, and I think there's more of that going on than the paranoia. There's an old principle called the Hegelian principle that's been around for a couple of hundred years. It's called thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Create a problem, create panic and hysteria, and create a solution to the problem. And that's how these people who don't pay taxes, like Rockefeller, Ford, and all the rest of them, who own the shares in the Federal Reserve Bank, that's how they get the power over us, and they put appointees in place, elected representatives at the federal agencies under this regional government program, which is designed to bypass the Constitution of the United States. Now, we're either a nation of laws or we're not, and they're not following the law.
Well, Greg, I got to tell you that I wish that the media and the general public would pay as much attention to how laws are made as they did to the sentencing of Mr. Rader and all of his crimes. There was a rather prurient fascination about that just a very small portion of that attention would have educated the typical person on the street that if they don't pay attention, they're going to get conned, and that's what happened with the Patriot Act.
Well, we're going to have to reinstate the death penalty. Our prisons are full, and we're going to spend probably $1 million keeping that man in jail for the rest of his life. His life has been taken away from him already as far as social life. And, the death penalty is like a stop sign. If you take away the stop signs and the stoplights at all the intersections, you'll have nothing but total accidents.
Well, but Greg, let me interrupt you a second. One of the reasons we are getting away from the death penalty is that it's too expensive, and we actually are going to be able to keep Rader incarcerated the rest of his life for a fraction of what we would pay if we're going to execute him.
When I went through bypass surgery, and it didn't cost no $100,000 to give me my shot to put me to sleep. And if they gave me a little bit more than what I was supposed to have, I would have not woke up, and I wouldn't even have known anything, okay, and wouldn't even known I had been operated on. So when I went into surgery, my friends were concerned. I said, well, if I don't wake up, I'm not going to know it. And if they give me too much of that shot, and I guarantee it didn't cost them $100,000 to give me a shot to put me to sleep.
Didn't have to go to court, though, to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
and that's the problem there.
But there needs to be a lot of common sense put into these things, but we have people who violate the laws of our land right here at home, locally, and at the state level. And the state legislators created all the branches of government. They're the ones that can challenge all of these acts that Congress does. Now, Congress is supposed to give an accounting every 30 days to the legislators. They haven't done it for over 50 years. And the legislators need to hold the senators and congressmen accountable. And Bill Clinton would have been impeached if the state legislators of all the states would have required that senator to impeach him. He wouldn't have a choice because he can be recalled by the state legislator who has the senator and congressman that represent our state. So accountability is the key, and following the laws of our land is the other key. And without it, we're not going to have a civilized society that we lived by many, many years before us. There's lots of people died to keep our country at the level where we have good representative government, and we just don't have it.
I agree with you, Greg, 100%. I have so many callers here on the line. I have hundreds of questions.
The solution is to restore the Constitution and make sure the elected people follow their oath of office. That is the key to the solution to a lot of these problems. And I want to thank you for allowing me to carry on like this. And Jim Loyne is really up on that Patriot Act, and he most certainly knows what he's talking about. I've seen him at some other meetings before.
And that's why he is the man here.
Now, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Have a good day. I have many callers on the line. I need to ask you, Jim, a question. Do you think the law targets Muslims and Arabs? I mean, let me tell you why I ask this question. In England, a day after they passed, one day after they passed their law in England, they detained 10 Arab Muslims, and 2 were already deported. 8 were in prison and eventually they're going to be deported. So does this law really target only Muslims and Arabs?
The law itself is neutral, but the enforcement of the law could
Applying
very easily
the law.
Yes,
Right,
how
applying
it's
the law.
applied, and there's no question that right after 9/11, a whole bunch
8,000
of Americans or people who are legally here who are Muslims were detained, to put it mildly, and some were actually secretly moved out of the country, and nobody knew what happened to them for a long time.
I have on the line Sammy, number 2, line 2. Sammy,
Yes.
good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Now, how you doing?
Pretty good.
I have a question here for Mr. Lyons. How you doing, Mr. Lyons?
I hope I'm fine.
Tonight, by the way, is the only time on KCTU you will get free consultation by Jim himself.
Go ahead, Sammy.
No, yeah, I just wanted to share an incident that happened to my neighbors like 2 weeks ago. First of all, I'm a Muslim, and I have some friends that live next door to me, and like 2 weeks ago, I guess the FBI and the immigration officer went to their apartment at gunpoint, and the 3 guys lived there, and at the time, just one of them happened to be there, and really they are very nice people that lived there for 9 years and never had any problems, and just people that love this country, and they just happen to have a different religion. So what happened here is, the officer got into the apartment at the gunpoint, and he mentioned that he talked to my friend, are you the only one here? And my friend told him yes. And he said, well, I'm going to go and search your house, and if I found anybody, I'm going to shoot them. So I just wanted to, my question here is just how far they can go, how far the FBI or the government can, come to your place. Do they have to have a permission, or can you allow them in the house, or are they allowed to threaten you like this, shooting? Gun threatening, and
Let me
no
explain.
problem at all?
Let me explain right off the bat. There is a constitutional right of privacy that's set forth in both the Third and Fourth Amendments to the Constitution. Nobody talks much about the Third Amendment, but it's the provision that outlaws quartering of soldiers, which was a very common thing in the Middle Ages, and even was done some in the American Civil War, where a general would come along and just take over somebody's farm or somebody's home. And it got to be an issue in England several centuries ago, and the view was taken that the most humble house of some peasant was off limits from the King of England, who could not cross that threshold without permission. And so that is now enshrined in American constitutional law, which obviously was violated in that circumstance. It sounds like the agent had no reasonable basis, and certainly no warrant, to believe that anything was going on other than a bunch of people were having a discussion or a meeting about something. But I can tell you, again, it goes to the way law is enforced. Back when I was president of the American Civil Liberties Union of Kansas, we had at least one, and I think 2 different FBI informants who regularly came to meetings. Well, I didn't mind it because, 1, we needed the dues, and 2, we weren't doing anything that I was ashamed of, and it was just a big waste of government money to pay these people to monitor what we were doing. Now, in this case, where they come in with guns, I think the way to handle that is not to rush off and go to court, but to give this kind of event more publicity. Let the public know how irrational some agencies are acting. It's too bad that there wasn't somebody on hand to film these activities, because I can assure you that one of the things that has probably helped get the English back a little bit closer to following their own constitution after what happened 3 weeks ago was the fact that there was filming of that poor man from Brazil getting chased and shot and killed. And that's terribly embarrassing to government officials, as it should be. So somebody in the case you're describing, Sammy,